Welcome to another episode of Hireside Chats, your go to podcast for the latest news, views, and insights from the dynamic landscape of the talent supply chain ecosystem. I'm your host, Ajay, and today we are diving into a game changing trend that is reshaping the C suite, the rise of fractional executives. As new economy companies look for agility and innovation, a new leadership model is emerging with fractional CFOs and fractional CHROs taking the stage. But what exactly is a fractional executive? How effective are they? And can they truly drive growth in today's fast paced business landscape? Let's find out. Today, we have two incredible guests who have joined us for the podcast. And it's my pleasure to introduce Srinivasan V Swamy, a true trailblazer in the fractional CXO business. As a founder of CFO Bridge and the co founder of CTO Bridge, Srini is an independent director, sleep advocate, business mentor, and a growth partner, offering outsourced and virtual CFO services to SMEs and startups. We also have Suresh Bethavandu, founder of KFW and CHRO Bridge. Suresh is a talent transformation specialist with a passion for the human side of business, and he has over 25 years of expertise across every imaginable HR role. So it's with great pleasure that I invite the two of you for our podcast today. Thank you very much for sparing the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Srini and Suresh, we are witnessing a shift from the traditional full time executive model towards a more flexible approach with the onset of fractional leadership. And I understand with an incredible 100% increase in the hiring of interim CFOs alone last year, I think it's clearer that many companies are embracing this new model and new change. So, to kick things off, Srini, the first question is to you. Can you tell us and our audience who are listening to you what a fractional CFO or a CHRO is, and how are they different from a typical CHRO CFO who's doing a full time role? And do you see this becoming more popular in the current economy, especially the new age companies and new age industries?
Thank you, Satish, and thank you, Suresh. So, look, I started this in 2012. Remained kind of, small scale, I would say, till about 2020. I definitely will attribute to pandemic. Pandemic changed a lot of things. Because of the fact that everybody was compulsorily working from home, and you see less of guys, and you see more of the video, and as a result of which extended collaboration has become necessity in the societal space, and the increase in demand for fraction CXOs, to put that way, actually became very high after the pandemic. In fact, I will say pre-pandemic for CFO Bridge and post-pandemic for CFO Bridge are two distinctive trends. And even in the post-pandemic, I would say 2022 is a defining time. And thereafter, the growth started growing up really vertically. Now, just to kind of introduce fractional CFO, we internally say fractional arrangement is an arrangement where a fraction multiplies. Mathematically, fraction divides. But here, fraction multiplies. That's what we say. Because you're definitely looking at someone lot more senior. Fractional gives you the ability to go and ask for a very senior talent. Like, for example, you look at Beth's experience profile 25 plus years of experience, having worked in large corporates, $10 billion plus turnover, and huge work experience. I was the CFO for Bharti AXA Live. Now we can be accessed by even a smaller entity, and they can pay by the hour, by the day, and stuff like this. Earlier, it was not possible. Now, this ability to access more experienced talent, even in a smaller way, is the possibility which is coming to you by the fractional route. But definitely, I want to just assure fractional does not necessarily mean fractional ownership. It's full ownership. That's why I said fraction multiplies here. It's not necessarily fractional ownership. No, fractional is only with respect to the time that you access and also to the money that you pay. The work has to be delivered. The work is 100%, right? There is no fraction there. And that kind of addresses the initial thing that you asked for, sir.
Okay. So, Srini, can you tell us the story of how you got this idea? I mean, you were a full time CFO. How did this idea come to being? And a little bit of insights into how the last decade has been for the
Yeah,
CFO bridge. And then we'll delve a little deeper into the CHRO bridge, which
sure,
is probably a new
sure.
offering. But we'd love to
Yeah.
hear that story of how you created this entity.
Yeah, sure. It was probably 2011. By the time I worked for about 10 years in insurance industry, and I just thought startups are becoming more and more the norms of the day. So I thought I should attend the CFO interview for a startup. I went for an interview. There the interviewer said, Srini, definitely you are a lot more experienced than what we need. I wish I can only get a slice of you. That is the first time I heard that, wow, okay, so you need a slice of me, then what do I do with the balanced slice? And the interviewer said very kindly, saying that looks like it may be a business idea, you can figure it out. So it just came rather serendipitously or accidentally, I would say. This entire idea germinated in a conversation which was just kind of in an actual interview. Then I came back and I started looking at it and then do a little bit of Googling, researching, and talking to a few people. And then I met with a, partner from PwC US, and he gave me a book. His name is Cedric Reed. He wrote a book on redefining the CFO's office. Very, very insightful book. And when I read, I was absolutely clear in my mind that the way the economy, the society is growing in India, there will be a need for fractional ownership, and that is the basis on which the whole thing actually started. Now, the last 10 years journey has been quite rewarding. But the good thing is, thankfully, in Mumbai, where I started, the acceptability was pretty high. Geographically, also, there are a lot of early adopters of anything, any new idea. Early adopters are actually more in Mumbai than I would say in many parts of the country. So, I happen to be thankfully in Mumbai. So, the early adopters just took it on without asking any question. So the selling point was this: you have an ability to access a highly experienced talent which has seen ups and downs. I mean, what's experience? Experience is making mistakes and learning from there, right? So here is a guy who has learned and who has got some experience, and he's also available, accessible to us. Can we access him? So the early adopters were willing to accept it. And then the word of mouth spread. So I kept one thing very clear. I said, I will not tell you how much is my charging. I never used my corporate rate as the rate for charging out. I kept that very friendly. I said, you pay me what you think is appropriate, right? I think that's how we will discover the model. We need to really discover what's the right rate that we can actually quote. So economics was not the driving in the initial stages. And slowly we discovered everything. For 10 years is a lot of time, over a period of which we actually created the demand, we discovered the right pricing model, we discovered an economic model out of that. Not only that, then we also discovered a model where it's not just a Srini's show, right? I think now we have got 35 plus highly acclaimed CFOs working in this platform, and many of them are more experienced than me. And the ability to attract them and then ability to have them in the same platform and feeling ownership of that and having the freedom to work and contribute and collaborate and grow together. I think all these things were discovered. Of course, we made several mistakes on the way, but I think thankfully the things that we did right were more than the mistakes that we made. So, as a result of which, over 10 years' time, the model actually came together. It came together really well in a highly scalable fashion. That's why we scaled beyond Mumbai. Now we are present in all the major cities of India. That's
One,
summary of the 10-year journey.
great, great, Srini. So, question to you, Suresh.
Sure.
The CFO bridge is a decade old, and like Srini mentioned, fractional CFO has added significant value to organizations that they are servicing. How did the fractional CHRO idea emerge? And generally, the human resources function is considered a very high touch, people centric function. So, do you really think a fractional CHRO can create an impact both in terms of value and in terms of lower costs for some of the new emerging organizations?
Sure. So the principles on which Srini articulated forming CFO Bridge are the same guiding principles for CHRO as well. Okay, that's point number one. Point number two is I also go back to the point of the pandemic. I truly believe that while the pandemic delivered lots of ill effects to the global population, I think one positive outcome that I saw, and I think everybody will acknowledge the development, is the fact that I think the employee started looking at the employee employee relationship differently. Similarly, while this was happening, the employer also started reevaluating, reimagining the employer employee relationship. Because, as Srini pointed out, this was a period of more than 24 months where employees were remote. They were not having access to understanding the employer, but the work got done. If you look at the global corporate scenario, I have not heard of a single instance where there was a deficiency of delivery of service to a client. Everything got done as per the SOW, as per the contractual obligation. But the methodology that was adopted by both employer and the employee was very, very different. That, in my mind, gave rise to a new thinking, new reimagination, right? New way of creating value to customers.
Right.
And when I heard the story from Srini, and Srini and I have been talking about it for the last, I would say, about 8 months, in terms of how I can piggyback. And then the larger vision was to create a CXO platform and not just finance. In fact, I call it an FTT platform right now, which is F for finance, T for technology. Srini went ahead and formed an entity called CTO Bridge. And thereafter, the newbie is the KFW, the CHRO Bridge. And I think the larger space, white space that exists is to can we add few more functional areas that will actually make this arrangement a lot more holistic and become very, very viable when a startup or a platform company or a SMB look at fractional services as a whole. We want to be operating in that space where we go and tell him that, look, our menu card, our service offering is very comprehensive, and then we will deliver value for you. So that's how I have to summarize my 1.5 years of experience doing this. That's pretty much how I saw the development.
Great. Wonderful.
Now,
So,
Satish, if I may just add,
sure,
right,
sure,
I
sure.
think what Beth said, that the entire employer employee arrangement got kind of relooked at it, and we have got a redefined version now post pandemic. I would say the fractional is one offshoot of the same thing. I mean, it's not a very different thing. If you can work in a particular way, you have been working in a particular way for hundreds of years, and then the pandemic redefined it, that you can even do it in a remote way, collaborative way, virtually as well. Then why not virtual CFOs? And then virtual CFOs mean why not fractional CFOs? So they are all, I would say, an offshoot of the same thinking system. That's how it
Got
looks
it.
to me.
Wonderful. So, my next question to you, Srini, is now that you've seen in the last decade or so, you have 40 odd fractional CFOs working in the CFO ecosystem. One of the first questions that comes to my mind is, can they create the same value despite working on multiple assignments, multiple engagements? So, I know that affordability is probably one of the key factors why companies reach out to you. And like you said, I may charge less, I may charge for a fraction of their time, but the value and the impact that they have to create is probably the same or more than what a typical CFO would give. So, our listeners will be very keen to understand if you can think of an example. You don't have to name the company, name the client, but if you can think of an example as to how a fractional CFO has been able to create the same impact or more impact despite working across multiple engagements or assignments.
Yeah. See, there is one philosophical stuff here. I think what happens is there is a company which probably chronically has developed issues, and then it has used a particular type of talent to solve the problems. This is the first time someone significantly higher than the average talent available to them. The new talent, the fractional talent, is significantly higher than is going there for the first time. It's looking at it with that experience and with that gray hair and with that experience and wisdom. The whole thing looks to them very, very differently. And therefore, lot of low hanging fruits are clearly visible to you. So, that in itself, the ability to look at it from a different angle, different experience, depth, and profile itself reveals all the business problems. So, you are able to do that. So, the design itself is designed to take care of the value add in the initial. So, in fact, in every single assignment, we are saying, we are seeing continuously the first few months there has been, I have heard feedbacks, right? I think, client calls me and tells me, Srini, pura paisa vasool hai. For entire year's assignment value I have recovered in the first month itself. That's what we are hearing, and that is not abnormal at all. Now that has become the new normal for us. Now let's look at an example of a company which had been growing significantly, but were more focused on the growth and probably more focused on the technology team and the sales team. The finance team just remained the junior team, the same company old guys who were with them for the last 10 years, and they were all managing it. And suddenly the company has moved into a new orbit. And some of the functions have also managed to move into the new orbit. The more important function, the functions which are, straight away into the attention of the promoter. But some of the back office functions like finance remained in the previous orbit. And this is one particular company which we saw. When we went in there, we saw that the people, process, and system, these are the three pillars of the finance. The people are good and they are wanting to learn, but there is nobody to train them or teach them. And then there is the system, the processes are all completely outdated. The processes are made for the previous orbit. The company is in the new orbit, and technology is once again outdated, right? So all three pillars of a effective finance team are outdated. They are disconnected with the new reality. So when we went in there, we kept the people as it is. We thought that, as long as the people are willing to learn and redeploy themselves, we should train them. We don't necessarily go and tell, you change the people. That doesn't really work. So we said we will train and upgrade the people, redid the people, process, technology, realigned it with what is needed, and the company now has actually literally doubled its turnover from where it was. It already grew significantly. So now the company has managed to go into the next orbit. Now, seriously, the company is now talking to us saying this is not an SME IPO. They are talking of a main board IPO. So, a company which was in the SME, which is just growing, and you just lay down the fundamentals so that the company can easily take off. Now, this is real life situation where we are now working. We are working with the same company and guiding them, saying how can we actually launch an IPO for the company. And so these are all very, very satisfying moments that we have got.
Very nice to hear that.
So, if I can just
Sure.
quickly chime in and then say that the mindset of an employee to be able to create an impact versus the mindset of a fractional CXO coming and making an impact, I think there are no clutches to the fractional CXO, right? Whoever that person is, right? He or she comes in, has a limited period of time to make an impact. And that individual is not worried about the corporate dynamics, corporate structure, management
Correct.
thinking, right? He or she is there to make an value, and that individual brings experience to the table. And right, whereas in a traditional model, whoever is available in the CXO role has a longer run to be able to deploy certain strategies, see whether it works, course correction. That opportunity need not necessarily be available in the context of a fractional CXO.
Got it. It's interesting that you brought that point up. So, Suresh, for the fractional CFO or the CHRO, how important it is to build trust with the existing ecosystem. And, typically finance and HR are considered functions that are, I mean, the work that they do is so internal, inward focused. It is extremely crucial that immediately build a very strong trust with the leadership organization as well as the people in the organization. So, how important it is and how do they do it? Are there any text tools that fractional CXOs use to get that head start in these organizations?
No, it's a very good point, but the experience is that the conversation of a fractional CXO is with the leadership team or with the promoter or with the CEO or the COOs in terms of what is expected of that individual or a set of people who work in a particular engagement. But in reality, all of us have worked with the PwC, KPMG consulting entities, right? The real work is actually happening on the ground, right? So here you are, you landed in a customer organization. You have in your head all the mandates, all the impact, all the outcome, all the metrics, all of that stuff is churning in your head. But here is a team which need not necessarily share that end goal or the end state, right? And like Srini was pointing out earlier, most of them or all of them have worked across industry domains, have handled significant number of programs in their life, some of them operational and many of them transformation, right? Now they understand by virtue of their experience, if they have to really succeed, it is a foot soldiers with whom they need to create a relationship, right? I think from day one, right? The example that Srini was quoting, right? I'm 100% sure whichever person that took that responsibility would have gone down to the team and then said, hey guys, you are in a old orbit, they are in a new orbit in a very nice way. And then say, I am here to bring my expertise, my help, and I'm here to make you succeed. And I think the moment you say that to the team, saying that here is an individual who's willing to help us to grow, I think I won the confidence. And through consistent and demonstrable actions, if we're able to include them in everything and not just keep them in the backyard, and then you will get into all the strategic discussions, right? That I think will give a little bit of energy to their wings within their own system of operation. I think they will be ever grateful to say that here is an individual who's bringing. The second thing is, I think many of them, and we have seen this happen in multiple enterprises where individuals, functional professionals, whether finance or technology or talent, when they put in long years of work, they are used to doing things in a particular way. Their perspectives are cast in stone. When the CXO who comes from outside brings wealth of experience, they find it very refreshing. Third is the functional competence, right? Whether you're a CHRO, whether you're a CFO, or whether you're a CTO or a CSO or whoever, or a CMO, whoever you are, the amount of experience that you bring to the table, they find it very, very refreshing, right? And lastly, I think the emotional quotient or the temperamental quotient that these individuals bring is very, very positive, right? They don't challenge, they don't pass negative comments, they don't say what you have been doing all along is not up to a particular standard. They don't say, right? These are people who are here to build on the foundation that has been laid, and the superstructure that they build is expected to be a lot more impactful, a lot more efficient, and so on. So that I would believe is a kind of a formula to be able to succeed.
Great.
Yeah. So if I may add, Satish, I think Beth beautifully talked about two words. One is confidence and confidentiality. Both of them are very different. Confidence comes from the demeanor of the fractional CXO who goes there, and the knowledge that he is able to kind of bring to the table, the value that he brings to the table, and also the comfort that he is giving to the table. I think Beth talked about a very, very important point, which is we are not going to go there and say that, look, we are going to do it completely differently. No, we are going to build on what we have done and we are going to make it better. We always try to look at it saying that how can we make it better? So that builds a lot of confidence. So, many times we talk of CBMs within our office. It's called confidence building measures. Continuously, you have to build confidence. Confidentiality is a higher thing. I mean, it comes when I started. I repeatedly been asked this question: how will you keep things confidential? Buddy, I was the CFO of a large company, global MNC. Why would you even think? Go back and look at my career, and I have not done that. So that's how I kind of threw my weight. But later on, the organization itself. Now, for example, if we have existed as a successful organization in fractional finance leadership for the last 12 years time, without confidentiality, I could not have crossed year one. So now nobody asks the question. It's confidentiality is more a function of the time. I think CFO Bridge has clearly crossed that pull, and the CTO Bridge and CHRO Bridge, everything is going to ride on that, the tailwind that is created. So I think confidentiality is no longer an issue.
Got it. So, Srini, clearly the model has several advantages, and the model has created organizations the last decade or so. It's clearly the examples are out there for us to see. But I'm sure there are challenges associated with this model as well. And in your experience, Srini, last decade or so that you've been managing the CFO bridge, what are some of the challenges that you have seen in this model and how come them? And now that you're creating the CIO bridge and so on, have some of those challenges that you overcome earlier, are they helping you in redefining the way the model has to be introduced to the new economy, new growth companies?
Yeah, look, I think it's a very interesting question. I think, we both on the supply side and on the demand side. Also, we have had challenges. Supply in the side where we are getting partners who are coming in. Partners came in and then originally, and they asked some questions and they're skeptical. They are looking for how this whole thing is going to work. So, when it comes to attracting key talent to come and work in the platform, you need to build certain corporate value system like high level of transparency and an environment which will encourage collaboration. And absolutely, and third and most important thing is financial discipline, right? You just say, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what you will do. No matter what comes, whatever we agreed in the beginning is what happened through. So those are all some of the fundamental pillars by which you build so that the supply side challenges are kind of taken care of. The demand side challenges, is biggest one is the acceptability, because the concept is fairly new, still new. I mean, we believe, we did a back of the envelope calculation, Satish. We thought that there are some 40 to 50,000 entities can actually benefit from this. This is what we thought. Last 10 years, we have hardly serviced 400 or 500 companies, just less than 1%. So, and it is growing, right? With an Indian economy growing significantly. Now, this 40,000 was yesterday. Today, it is probably even more than that, and it is growing by the day. And so, how do we take this message? The message has to be taken to the people that yes, ऐसा भी हो सकता है. This is also possible, and that is really very important. One, and that has been the lack of awareness of such a possibility is the biggest constraint first. And second constraint is discomfort, saying that if he or she is a full-time employee, I have fair amount of control and say on them. The three functions of ability to have someone as an employee is to give him salary, giving him carrots and sticks, and you have his full attention. And this is the traditional thought process. And that itself is a struggle, right? I think more often than not, you guys being in HR, you would have seen how do we get full value out of a full-time employee itself is a struggle for most of the companies. Now, how do I do that for part-time employees is even bigger struggle. So the guy starts thinking, how do I ensure that I will get value out of them? And the biggest question that I get asked is, Srini, is this a consulting model or you guys will take accountability also? This is literally in every conversation, even today. It's not gone away. And we have to go back and tell them that without accountability, without a governance mechanism, it's just not going to work. So we give them comfort, saying that look, both of us will agree on the scope, a deliverable calendar, the review mechanism. Every month we will say, just like how Rajnikant says, "Sayarathadhan solven, solarathadhan saiven." I do what I say and I say what I do. But you have to have that clarity, and you have to have the list of deliverable, and the deliverable governance mechanism has to be there to ensure that okay, these guys are delivering what they are saying. So we can build this accountability. We have generally seen people having awareness issue and then accountability issue. Once you are part of them, then they realize that look, you are as good and probably if not even better in many respects than a full-time employee. When the comfort comes in, then there is no problem.
Got it. So, Suresh, the next question is for you.
Sure.
I just wanted to ask you, the fractional CXOs, do they need to have certain additional skills or different type of skills to be successful in a setup such as this? I know they have been CXOs in their previous organizations, full-time CFOs, but what is the adaptability, especially on the skill side, that they need to have to be successful in a typical fractional kind of an engagement?
Sure. Good question, because oftentimes we end up only looking at the demand side of the equation and assume that the supply side is hunky dory, right? But in reality, as Srini pointed out, I would believe as an entrepreneur, you have to spend significant amount of time on both sides continuously until you have reached a point of scalability, right? You've reached a particular scale where your own brand will attract not just the supply but also the demand, and I think the water will find its level. But from my own experience, right, I worked for more than 35 years, represented multiple corporations, played multiple roles, multiple geographies, and so on and so forth. The employee mindset is almost integrating that everything that my company is doing, every strategy my company is adopting, every cog in the wheel I own, I try to make an impact. And with whatever limitations that I have on my delegation, culture, that's a traditional mindset. And as I said before, if you spend a little longer, you actually self immerse yourself in that ecosystem, right? Your ability to challenge, your ability to look at transformational changes, and your ability to question the status quo, and your ability to keep track of larger industry level changes, larger market level changes, geopolitical situation, and bringing those changes into weaving your company strategy, right? Could potentially be a little bit of an issue, because you again get influenced by what you will say, your bosses will say, your team members will say, and so on and so forth, right? But the biggest change, if you're moving from a corporate entity to a consulting or a partner mode, I think is to understand that you're no longer bound by those shackles.
Correct.
Okay. You come in here, it's a free runway, limited time. There is a thinking that the promoter, the owner, the CEO, leadership team has the clarity with which you are able to understand what is to be done, right? And Srini talked about the monthly review. So those are things which you would have already done in your corporate life. But to change and come here as a consultant and to be able to keep track of those outcomes, those impact areas, and then say, this is what I promised, this is the journey that I have undertaken. I am on par with the milestone, not on par with the milestone. Here are the causal analysis, and these are the corrective mechanism. Number one, right? That is a functional one. More important than the functional one, right? Which I don't doubt any of these partner professionals. I think the most important adaptation is the fact that I need to co-create the outcomes and not self-create. It's not I who's operating there, who's creating it. It is my entire ecosystem that is coming here, which includes entities like a CFO, right? I'm taking an engagement. I might need to onboard two more CFOs because they have been there, they have done it, right? And Srini talks about the principal partner versus non-principal partners, right? And I believe that that collective wisdom, the intellectual power that the entity brings is something that you need to bring to bear to the customer organization. And number three is, at the end of the day, for the period of the duration of the engagement, you actually become part of that entity.
Right.
Right? The fact that you are fractional, the fact that you are interim, it really doesn't matter. Those are commercial models, right? For 3 months, 6 9 months, 12 months, whatever is the duration of the engagement, you actually become part of that entity in order for you to breathe the same air as others in the organizations are breathing. And the last point I will make is it becomes a little tougher because, in case if you're going to ask me, now, how does one do this if that individual is engaged? You are really put through a litmus test. For example, I can be in an FMCG program. I could be parallelly working on a startup. Or I could be working on a manufacturing. The promoter mindset is different. The team composition is different. The intellectual firepower is different in every single context. But I remain constant, right? Will I be able to fit myself into each of this context and make sure that I am keeping a line of sight to the outcomes, in my opinion, is a bit of a challenge. And I think it also makes the journey pretty enjoyable.
Got it. Great. So now, as we conclude, we come to the final phase of our podcast, and it's a fairly popular segment with our audiences. We call it the rapid fire. My request to you is keep the response brief, one liner as much as possible, and very candid responses is what we seek from you. So the first one is to you, Srini. When you recruit fractional CFOs, what is that one must have skill that you look for?
Diverse companies, diverse industries if the person has worked for.
Okay. To you, Suresh, what is the common misconception about fractional execs that all of us carry, the world carries?
The amount of pressure, because by virtue of this model, people believe that sometimes it can be easygoing, but that's very, very contrary to the reality.
Okay. Srini, one thing you wish companies, prospective clients of yours, companies knew about the fractional exec role.
If they are willing to be a little bit more flexible on the commercial negotiation, I would love that.
Okay. So the last one to you, Suresh. How do you determine whether a fractional CXO is successful or not successful? See, in an organization, you have a performance appraisal system, you have a management process, you have some way of managing performance. How do you do that with a fractional CXO?
So to me, it's very, very simple. Whether it is in the finance area or technology area, marketing area or HR area, given the fact that you're looking at individuals of 25 plus years of experience, I think for me, credibility is very, very critical.
Okay.
And by virtue of your long corporate work, you would have touched hundreds and thousands of lives. And if you have made a difference to them in a very positive way, in a very objective way, in a very professional way, that, in my opinion, speaks much, much louder than your LinkedIn profile resume. So to me, credibility is a key word.
Fantastic. And that wraps up our conversation on the fractional leadership space. A very exciting and interesting space. Thank you very much, Srini, Suresh, and from the clear benefits that you both articulated, I'm sure a lot more new age organizations are going to start exploring this model. And I wish the CFO bridge and the CHRO bridge all the best. Hopefully, when we meet next time, there'll be a lot more customers, clients who have embraced this model. So a huge
Thanks,
thank you
Sachin.
to the two of you for your time and your expertise and insights. Our audience will love this new concept, and I hope that you enjoyed the episode as well.